Welcome to the Trap House Podcast. Thanks for joining us. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe on all social media platforms. And now a quick word about our sponsors. We have Duke Traps with us. Check out duketraps.com. They manufacture over 40 different models of cage traps, coil and long springs, and body gripping style traps, as well as one of my personal favorites, the powder-coated dog proofs. Check out duketraps.com. Need a place to sell your fur? Check out Groenwald Fur and Wool Company. Over 50 years in the fur business, the largest and most experienced direct receiver of wild fur in the world. Check out their website, gfwco.com. Top Lot Stretcher Company. They have all the fur processing tools you need to get the job done in the fur shed. From push pins to wooden stretchers, they got you covered. Check out toplotstretcherco.com. And this one's for the ladies that don't mind getting their hands a little dirty setting some traps. We have Trapping Girl Inc. with us. Check out their website, trappinggirlinc.com. They have a great selection of women's apparel, kids apparel, baits and lures, and trapping supplies. Check out trappinggirlinc.com. J3 Outdoors. They make American trapping products designed for maximum trapline efficiency with products like the Hags Bracket and Spring Clip, as well as the Universal Lock and Beaver Rod ends. Get the tools you need to get the job done. Find out more at j3o.com. And there's only one true way to start out the day on the trap line, and that's with a hot cup of coffee from Trapline Coffee. They have great tasting blends to choose from, as well as chocolates. Head over to traplinecoffee.com for more. Weeby Knives. Check out weebyknives.com. They have a great selection of skinning knives, fleshing knives, fur handling tools, and they'll give you the edge you need to get the job done, and you guessed it, they're wicked sharp. Check out weebyknives.com. And we'd like to welcome the newest sponsor to the team, No BS Lures. Don't let the name fool you. There's more than just bait and lure. This company offers trapline tools and hardware, fur handling supplies, and the No BS traps. Check out nobslures.com. And last but not least, Hoosier Trapper Supply, home of the Top Dog Predator Bait, Jet Fuel Predator Lure. We offer a complete line of trapping baits and lures, deer scent, trapline tools and hardware, fur processing tools, and special package offers. Head over to HoosierTrapperSupply.com. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Trap House Podcast. We got a great guest with us that we've got to basically share the last 3 trapping seasons with down here in Texas. We got Ben Cromeens. He's a taxidermist, a trapper, and now we consider him a friend.
Howdy. It's great being here.
Yeah. So we're here midway through our trip down here in Texas, running around. So it's finally an honor to have you on the show.
Cool. I'm gonna do my best not to embarrass myself or.
Oh, we've done worse. Don't worry.
We've had worse guests.
Hopefully, my mom doesn't hear this.
But yeah, just kind of. We always do this with our first time guest on. Just kind of take us from the beginning, like how you got into the outdoor lifestyle, and then eventually into starting to trap.
Holy cow! This is going to take a while. Well, both sides of my family were ranching families, and that's how my parents met. So I had my entire childhood. I had lots of access to ranch property to do outdoor things, and for whatever reason, it kind of worked out that I was always staying busy with outdoor stuff. It was kind of a better babysitter than most people. Exactly. Yeah. Well, my dad could turn me loose in a pasture with a brick of 22s and a 22 and tell me he'd pick me up at dark, and that's how I grew up pretty much. And started off as a little kid shooting jackrabbits, and at some point Grandpa told me that I needed to be shooting coyotes, and so started shooting coyotes. And then the other side of my family had problems with hogs when I was in my later teens, and so I started shooting a lot of hogs too. So I was always busy trying to find problem animals and exterminate them. So that's basically how childhood went. And I will say that on the coyote end of it, when I was a kid, my dad did some varmint calling, and I can remember as a kid watching my dad varmint call and thinking why he was so successful was about the sounds that he made. I really thought the key to killing lots of coyotes was having the right sound at the right cadence, knowing when to talk, when to shut up, things like that. And I went through my teenage years experimenting a lot with varmint calls, trying to make the right sounds, and I always struggled with success on that. And then somewhere around the age of 20, I totally changed my viewpoint and realized it's more about setup than it is the noise I was making. And the minute I switched my thought process and started focusing more on setup, my numbers just went through the roof. So at some point I learned how to get better. And now I think years down the road, as I've started to trap, understanding all those things that I learned about setting up, doing coyote calling, once I started focusing on setup, my kills went way, way, way up.
What do you mean by your setup?
I mean, the main things I'm going to pay attention to: first is sun, second's wind, third's lay of the land, and just positioning myself to where most of the time I'm never in total control, but I'm in some control over where that dog's coming from and what he's going to be able to see and smell. It does work better if I'm working like a 3-man team. Usually the perfect situation is having a rifleman, a good rifleman. A lot of times I'll be working a shotgun and then normally having a backdoor rifleman. When we do that, which that's the exception, it's most of the time it's me and one other person or just me by myself. But when I run a 3-man team, usually nothing gets out alive, and that's what you want. You don't want educated dogs. It's real easy to educate dogs, and those dogs get really tough to kill. But I think when I started looking at things like that, not too long after that, I started traveling to Africa, and I was watching what trackers did over there, and I'd always paid attention to tracking and tracks, and I admired those trackers over there for how good they were. And at some point I started to kind of put two and two together, and it was just, I may not be able to be as great as some of those African trackers are, but I can move in that direction. I can expand my skills in that field, and I've worked really hard to do that. And you start plugging that in with knowing how coyotes and predators in general move on the land. And then at some point I was like, I need to try trapping again. I had tried trapping way back in my late teens in college and around that, and it just, back then it was very difficult to find people that would tell you secrets on trapping, and I didn't have anybody to help me, and I was just very unsuccessful. And I was way more successful with my calling, so I gave up on it. But years later, I got to thinking I should pick it up again, especially with a lot of the knowledge that I had gained over the years. And I did. I went for it. Started watching some YouTube videos. YouTube helped me out. And then started just kind of incorporating everything I already knew about predators into some of the things I was seeing online and reading online. And so I think that to a certain extent, like, I may have conversations with other trappers, and because a lot of my skills were incorporated from things I just kind of learned on my own and hybridized into my trapping. A lot of the lingo that I have to describe stuff doesn't really match the lingo out there in the profession.
Yeah, that's all right.
So y'all may hear me say some words here that don't jive with what y'all might say, but
Yeah.
that's the best way I can describe certain things.
Well, that's kind of like us Easterners being here on a cattle ranch, so we don't know the terminology, the cowboys and all that. So we know exactly, so that's just the way it is. But,
We'll do our best to translate stuff.
So yeah, you basically, like you said, it's like being your babysitter was the Mother Nature, basically.
Yep.
That's
So-
awesome.
when did you start doing taxidermy?
I was 16. I needed a job, and I didn't think I was going to be a taxidermist my whole life. I was 16. I needed a job, and I got a job skinning birds for a taxidermist. And I guess I've just always been good with my hands. I always was working, helping my dad with stuff, and so I picked up anytime I'm working with my hands, I can pick those skills up real quick, get to work. They liked me a lot. Then I went off to college. I went to Texas A&M and got a wildlife and fishery sciences degree. And while I was there, I worked 4 years for another taxidermist, and learned a lot with him. He's very, very. It's two brothers had a taxidermy studio together, and they were both very skilled and very good men to work for. Helped me a lot in my younger years, and I got out of college, and I was like, okay, let's go do wildlife biology, private sector. Started doing that on some ranches. Really enjoyed doing what I was educated to do. Didn't enjoy people very much. Finally decided I was happier when I was a taxidermist, and I went and started my own company doing taxidermy, and we've been in business ever since. I think we've been in business over 25 years now. So it's,
That's awesome.
And that was. Did you start hunting in Africa prior to being in the taxidermy business?
No.
So the taxidermy business led
Yes.
you to Africa. So,
correct.
yeah.
It was customers in taxidermy that led me into going to Africa.
Okay.
Was there a point when you biology, then the taxidermy? Did you ever like mix the two, where you're like, all right, I'm like part time of each, kind of, so you could limit your access towards around people?
I have noticed that as I've gotten older, and there are certain things that my wildlife biology background has become more relevant again, and I'm becoming more involved in certain things, helping people with their ranches, and even some with Texas Parks and Wildlife, and it's kind of strange how there's been many times in my life where I have these skills. I have certain skills in life that they almost don't seem marketable, or they're a very niche market. I guess nowadays we're supposed to say niche or something, but when I was growing up, it was niche. So anyway, it seems like all these skills I have are very niche, very small market, but somehow, and I'm horrible at self-marketing. I don't know how to tell people that, hey, I need work doing, let's say, trapping, but somehow people always find me. I'm being honest.
Well, it probably seems that you. I could tell just from meeting you the first time that whatever you're into, you seem dedicated to, and if people start seeing that and then see the quality of what you're doing,
and that's probably good enough for him. Like, I like that guy. We'll hire.
You may be very well correct, but I've always thought that. I mean, it's almost like it. You know, they talk about the Lord will provide, and it seems like He always provided for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to program your computer, but I can kill your coyote. And the person that needed the coyote killed somehow found me. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
I remember you had one. It was in a high fence, and what were they raising?
whitetails.
Oh,
Probably.
it was whitetails.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the time, if I'm trapping behind fence, it's whitetail related.
I mean, they had like one coyote running around.
Oh man, that's needle in a haystack stuff.
You got him though.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I've had to do that. I've had to repeat that job I think 4 times.
How big is that place that's in the fence?
400 acres,
Okay.
and they'll get somebody will leave a gate open or the river will flood or something, and somehow they get a dog
Get
in
in
there, and they go into panic mode and have me go out there and get it. And the worst one took 13 days. Was the worst one. Seems like normally 5 or 6 is normal. Fastest one I pulled one off in 2 days. So
Yeah.
got lucky.
So, with that, you got to share some stories about Africa or something. Let's hear, like, what's the coolest African experience you had?
Holy cow.
On your trips over
Or if
there.
you got more than one, you can.
Yeah.
Man, I got a ton of them. But give me just a sec here. Let me think. Really cool African. You want funny, scary? What you want, man?
Whatever you think, and we can listen. You can do 2 or 3 if you want to.
Yeah.
Oh man. Probably one of the scary. I'll go ahead and tell you one of the scariest things that ever happened to me in my life. And I'll even be honest with you. When I tell this story, in all honesty, it might even make me sound less manly, but but I'll tell you this straight and
The manliest thing you can do is be honest.
okay.
There you go.
You sound like my self-help guy, man. Anyway, so I got a call from a good friend of mine over there. He had like this Lithuanian billionaire that had bought a lion hunt, and this is free range wild lion hunting in Zimbabwe. And the guy canceled on him and just walked away from the payment. And my friend called me up and he's like, "Hey man, can you come over here, drop a hat?" And it was not the normal hunting season. We were around Thanksgiving, and he's like, "Would you want to come over here and hunt lion?" And I was like, "Heck yeah, I want to go hunt lion, man." He's like, "Well, can you get over here quick?" And I talked to my wife and had a wonderful wife, just very understanding, and I went. I grabbed a plane ticket and headed out, and it was just starting to get into the rainy season there in Zimbabwe. I got there, I think it was right at the end of November, and it would start drizzling at night. The big heavy rains hadn't started, but just even when it's drizzling at night, I'd never seen anything like it. The bugs just boil out of the ground. It's like they've been waiting through all the dry season, and there's just bugs everywhere. But there's these little flies, or they're a type of ant that boil out of the ground, and it's like when you walk, you cover your mouth and nose because you think you're scared you're going to inhale something. And there was just bugs. I can remember that at that time of year, there was just bugs everywhere. And we started killing some baits, putting some baits out, and this lion showed up and started hitting one of the baits, and it was a big male. We decided we'd give it a try, so we built a blind, and we're sitting in there all night, and it started to rain at night, and it rained hard enough that he came in, but we didn't hear him on the bait. And normally these lions and leopards, when they're eating on a bait, you can hear them just, crushing through bones. All right, they got powerful jaws, and they're violent eaters, and they'll just snap things. And it was raining hard enough that he came in, and we never heard him. And so we decided we'd sit another night, and this time it's raining again at night, but not as hard as the night before, and I can hear that crunch. And my buddy Leon turns on a light, and there's this lion, and he's standing up, and he's got his hooks into this giraffe leg, and he's pulling on it, and he's crunching on the giraffe leg, and man, I'm dead on him, and from his neck up is covered by giraffe leg. I can see his chest down, but it's frontal, and again, just laying my cards on the table. I messed up. I took a frontal shot on him, which at best you can only get one lung, and that's what I did. I hit one of his lungs. I didn't take out both lungs. If I had waited for him to drop down and give a side profile, I could have shot both lungs and he would have died quickly. But I shot that one lung. He dropped. He ran, and he grunted when he ran. And Leon asked me how I thought the shot was. I was like, I nailed him. And we got to talking about the shot, and pretty soon we were pretty nervous about what was out there waiting for us. We came to a conclusion we might have problems. And the trackers were back at the truck, and they heard the rifle shot. They arrived with the truck, and we're all talking, and the trackers are finding the tracks. And right behind the bait's a big kopje, which a kopje's like a hill that's made out of big granite boulders. And we're pretty sure he's run up into that kopje. And you get a whole bunch of boulders together, piled together, and there's all kinds of cracks and hiding spots and everything in there. And the advantage is totally his. And we come up with a plan. All right, we got to go in. And it's dark. It's drizzling rain. It's dark. And one of these trackers takes a shirt, folds it, sticks a car battery. He's holding a car battery on his head, and they wire up a spotlight to the car battery. And Leon, he's walking with the spotlight. Orbit, the tracker's right behind him. I'm right behind Orbit, and I can remember we walked up to the kopje, and we're coming around the side of it, and we kind of passed something, and for a second they shined the spotlight, and I saw just one eye on a rock, and then and he was gone. And he went straight up the kopje. And man, we talk. I think the reason we're talking, we're stalling because nobody wants to go up those dang rocks. And but after a while, you got to go. And we started. Right within a few feet of climbing into the rocks, right off the bat, we can hear him above us, and he bleh, bleh, bleh. And man, this is where I think psychologically I started to come apart, man. I'm being straight with you. I could somehow, in my mind, that lion we were far from him. He's way up there. I got time, man. I got time. This is gonna be okay. He's way up there. And in reality, he wasn't. We were close. And but like I said, just psychologically, some type of self-protection in my own mind put him far away. And we're we're climbing into the rocks, and there's a big boulder on my right side, and Leon all of a sudden shines on top of the boulder, and man, you just see this big lion's head come over that boulder. And he's not hundreds of feet away like I'd imagine. He's probably, I don't know, 25 or 30 feet away. And I can remember Orbit saying something in Shona. I have no idea what it was, but I'm sure it was graphic in nature. I pulled up, and all this is in a millisecond. I pulled up a gun, and I can just remember I had this. It was a scope 375, and I raised the rifle, and I'm looking right up, and all I can see is teeth, and I let it fly. And man, he rolled backwards off the rock, and couldn't see him anymore. And Leon's like, "Did you hit him?" I was like, "I shot him square in the mouth." He's like, "Why'd you shoot him in the mouth?" I said, "Dude, that was all I saw." And I wasn't joking. I mean, I that's what I saw when I pulled the gun up, and it ended up I hit that line right there. And his teeth were all over the rock up there. The top teeth were all over the rock up there when we climbed up there. And when we got up there, he wasn't there. And like, oh crap! And we realized he kind of backed himself into a corner. Amazingly, he was still alive. I hadn't hit his brain when I shot him in the mouth. And anyway, he stood there, and as soon as we saw him, he was going to come, and everybody just unloaded on him. And that was it. He was dead. And,
Better safe than sorry.
and I've got pictures of it, not here with me, back. If y'all ever come to Houston, y'all can come to my office. I'll show you pictures. And there's pictures of me of this lion and I mean, just I'm gassed. The adrenaline was so high. I'm done.
Yeah.
But that was one of the most terrifying things I've ever been through there. Pretty wild.
That sounds legit.
That's a crazy
That
rush.
sounds legit. Yeah. What's the status on lions right now?
They're back with all that Cecil baloney,
Right.
Which was a bunch of fabricated junk. Our government fell for it, and they placed lions. They're not on the ESA. They haven't changed their status with CITES, but they've developed a special permit just for lions, and the same permit goes for elephants too. Being imported out of Africa, there are very few places that you can import them out of Africa, and those places have to be working in tandem with USFWS, giving them scientific data before USFWS will sign off on okay, we're going to start accepting lions out of that specific place, and it's basically just driven the price of lion hunting up is all it's done, and it hasn't done anything to save lions. The real threat to lions in Africa is native conflict. Most of your natives in Africa are they have an agriculture lifestyle, herding, goats, cattle. Lions are extremely hard on that, and so anywhere where those things are coming together, the natives are going to poison them. They're going to poison or trap them or whatever, but they're going to wipe them out. And as long as that's the real threat. Hunting, professional hunting, trophy hunting, that in no way, shape, or form is endangering lions, not in the least bit. The normal conflict between your average everyday African, all right, living out there in the bush and having to live with lions that's what's going to wipe lions out. because he's got a cow that's worth something, and he's got this lion that's worth nothing, and the nothing is eating his something.
Right.
So he's gonna kill the nothing.
Right.
Now, if you can formulate a plan with that man that makes that lion worth something, worth more than his cow, worth more than his herd of goats, whatever it is, if you can give that lion value, which trophy hunting does, suddenly he won't kill the lion. You know, you got to bring him into the business end of it. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, then any of that wildlife in Africa starts to stand a chance.
So is that happening?
In areas, yes, and like most people fly into Africa, okay, and they'll get on a little bush plane and fly to whether it's the hunting concession or the photo safari area, wherever it is, they kind of hop over all the reality of what Africa is and I'm not throwing stones at them. I mean, you're going on your vacation, you want everything to be smooth and beautiful, but you're not seeing what most of Africa is. And most of Africa in reality is absolutely void of wildlife. Mm-hmm. There's nothing there because the natives have wiped it out.
Okay.
If you can eat it, or if it's in conflict with your agriculture business plan, it's getting wiped out. That's the reality of Africa. Now, whether it's a photo safari area or a hunting area, then those animals have value, so they get protected and they flourish. Outside of those places, they stand almost no chance at all. That's the reality of Africa.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So if you could take some people, even if they're not into hunting, if they could go to Africa and instead of just getting on their little puddle jumper and running over here to the safari camp and kind of skipping over most of Africa, and you actually drove them through Africa, they'd realize, holy cow, it's a bunch of overgrazed property with a bunch of goats and a few cows. There's no wildlife here.
Interesting.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild that there's no wildlife.
Yeah.
Well, we should probably talk about this trip that we're on right now.
Yeehaw.
So, just to back up, so you called like out of the blue like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes.
And I talked to you. And
Yes,
you were
sir.
like, you want to come to Texas?
Yep.
And at that time we had just gotten back and just plain couldn't do it. And then like a year or two went by, I think. And then we finally got together. So this is the 3rd year we've been out here. So
Yep.
we appreciate the invitation, to say the least. But
One thing I can tell you is I mentioned earlier that I watched some YouTube videos. And I will say that on the internet, when it comes to trapping and other subjects, I would say at least 3/4 of what you run into is bull. There's a lot of trapping on the internet that is just like, yeah, that can't be reality. And luckily for me, I'm somewhat able, for whatever reason, I'm somewhat able to watch some things on the internet, watch some things on TV, and discern what seems like is real and functional and what is bull. And I watched a couple of y'all's episodes, Who's Your Trapper, and I mean, y'all aren't winning any awards or anything, but y'all look like real trappers. Y'all aren't going to glamorize it up any,
no.
but what you were doing, well, that was real trapping.
Clicked with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, at one point I was like, man, I need to give these guys a call and see if they'd be interested to come down here sometime. So I reached out and Charlie answered the phone, And I don't know, we started our evil master plan here, and it's been working out pretty good.
Yeah.
No, we've been talking about getting into Texas for years, not having the, opportunity with, there's no public land here, so our next best thing is an invite, so that was awesome that you were, gave us a chance to come in. It's been, if this is the last trip we ever did, I'll never forget and always cherish this time here. I mean, it's awesome.
I sure hope this isn't the last one.
I hope to.
I hope we can do this many more years. But
because it's a good time. It's hard work, but it's a really good time.
And so I mean, from the perspective of just the business side of the ranch, I mean, they need the coyote numbers down.
Correct. These are cattle producers, and at this time of year, believe it or not, even though it's Texas, up here in the Panhandle, conditions can get severe. Okay, we can have some really severe winters up here. The coldest I've personally seen it here, and I know it's been colder than this, but I've been up here when it's 13 below zero. We can get a lot of snow up here. When that starts to happen, these coyotes their social structures fall apart. They get desperate, and they pile into just the weakest, easiest food source they can find, which happens to be calving heifers. At this time of year, calving heifers that's the lowest fruit on the tree, and they will wipe them out. So the ranch manager is, again, one of those, somehow we all just find each other and start to find out what people have skills at. And he found out that I've got skills in making coyotes die, and so we started trying to put together a plan to thin out some of these coyotes. And to give you an idea, I don't know exactly how many coyotes that get killed off this place in a year. I would think it's probably pretty close to 500. But that's between cowboys shooting them, people calling them, helicopters. They even run greyhound teams, and then us trapping. And like I said, it's like holding back the ocean.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them there.
Well,
to give you an idea, I mean, just today, me and the guy that helps me, John, we went and looked at a cow that they stripped her carcass in less than 48 hours.
Yeah.
So they can eat a whole cow in less than 48 hours. The most extreme story that I know of, and this wasn't me personally, one of the cowboys here had a heifer that he knew she was having a problem with delivering her calf. He left her for a few hours and came back, and they had stripped her in just a matter of a few hours. And when I say strip, that means there's a hide and bones, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy how they just. Well, I mean, the first day we were here, we were setting, and just for everybody to know, Ben and John, they run a completely different section of the ranch, and that we do. It's a big ranch, and which is kind of fun because in the evening we can compare notes, and we
learn off each other.
Yeah. And then,
or at least I am. Y'all may not be learning anything.
Oh no, we're learning. We're learning. So, I mean, this style of trapping clearly is not something that we've done some in Kansas that's similar to this, but not the big. We don't have the big tracks like this. It's just basically seems unending. But, Jake shot that hog the first day we were here, which was a highlight. He liked that. He enjoyed that.
Yeah, I've been talking about doing that for 15 years. Wanted to just shoot a wild hog.
So we left it out there, and it took, I think, 4 days for the coyotes to find it, and then it was like
overnight.
Yeah, I mean, cleaned the meat between the rib bones, the whole deal. So some of it's still there, and we set 3 traps on it, caught a coyote the first night, and then today it was untouched. So I'm not sure. I know with had to be more than one coyote do what happened to that pig, but
it didn't last long.
I can remember one time I tracked a shot hog here. It had been shot for just a few hours, and I was on a blood trail and footprints. I made it, I don't know, a couple hundred yards. I could see where there had been pretty large ruckus and fight, and a lot of blood, a lot of hair, and then it's like at that point the hog was getting dragged, and this was a hog that was close to 200 pounds, and after that point the hog was getting dragged, and it got dragged for probably 20 yards, and then there was a smaller area of hair and little bits of this and that, and then it got dragged another probably 30 or 40 yards, and then it was just gone. They ripped that thing down to pieces, and everybody went their separate ways.
Yeah.
With whatever
Crazy.
hog they could carry.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
You know,
Yeah.
the first year we were here, we found that dead pile. So we were getting multiple coyotes on one. But this year we haven't had a dead pile to work off of. But
Numbers are still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
this is what, like, we're a week in, and I think we're up to what, 57 coyotes, I think, roughly?
60, 57.
I don't think we got five check days left, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
it
we're-
is- go ahead.
We're probably gonna, for this group, we're probably gonna set a new record for ourselves.
Yeah.
When you're driving around checking traps and setting traps during the day and you're just seeing coyotes running around,
Yeah.
there's a lot of coyotes. That's not something I can ever remember seeing on any other trip or at home or anything.
Heck,
So-
man, they just sit and lick on rocks with deer.
That's right. That's right.
You know, I still don't think he believes us. But, yeah,
Well, you might as well explain that, Jake. So.
there's something about it over the past couple years. We've got a couple coyotes that are just really low to the ground. They're
They got
like,
very short legs.
I call them corgi coyotes. Was basically.
We posted them online
Yeah.
in past episodes. Too.
So we're coming up the end of the road, end of a check day, and
Getting kind of dark.
yeah, there's a whitetail hanging out in the middle of the road and does not care that we're there. And there's a corgi coyote
Hanging out with
hanging
the
out
whitetail.
with a whitetail.
Best friends.
Yeah.
Licking rocks.
Like in a salt lake, but yeah, out there just hanging
Mineral
out.
block, yeah.
But
Just the weirdest thing ever.
yeah,
I've got to thinking about that. Maybe we should not kill the short-legged coyotes. I mean, maybe we should go ahead and turn them loose, spread that gene.
from an
And
evolutionary
we're probably,
standpoint.
exactly, we're probably going to lose a lot less game and cattle if
Because they won't be able to run as fast. Yeah.
And they can't really reach anything past the ankle on the cow.
the cottontails may not be safe, but everything else will be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, their legs are literally half as long as they should be. It seems like it's
So we like catching bobcats, but the holy grail is that everybody wants to catch mountain lion.
Oh man, I wish
Found a track today.
this trip. I think the one y'all found today, that's the fourth lion track we found this trip. And normally, I think last year y'all found one, I found one. They're always moving around here, but I think their numbers are going way up. I don't know what it is. They've never been protected here in Texas. You could always trap or shoot them.
Do they hunt them on this range?
They don't specifically hunt them, but they've shot a few. I shot one 2 Thanksgivings ago. On Thanksgiving Day, I shot a female south of the river. And I know that they had an aoudad hunter kill one a couple years ago, and then a couple of the cowboys killed one, I think a couple years before that, south of the river too. But they just kind of, I mean, they're lions, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Run a big area. That's
they run big areas. They're highly intelligent. They don't like getting looked at. There may be lions living in this building right here, but I don't ever see them.
Yeah.
And it's just like that out there. It's just they're so secretive, and that's like I know this will sound crazy, but like when I'm out there driving around and I look at land, I can tell you where the coyotes are moving on that land. I mean, the hills and the valleys and the creek beds and all that kind of stuff. I can tell you, it's just a feeling. It becomes a feeling after a while. And it starts to get that way with bobcats. And man, I wish I was like that with lions, but I've got so much to learn on them. And it's like every time I come across new lion sign, what is that doing here? Wow.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to see that here. I mean, I just a few days ago, I came across a big lion track where we got some bobcat sets, and I never would have expected to see that big lion track right there. But after it's all said and done, I really get to thinking, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Wow.
Yeah. I think they generally like the same type of terrain.
Yeah.
The there's guys that hunt lions with dogs, but in the scheme of things, there's not that many lion trappers out there. Of course, Bill Applegate recently died, and he was the most famous and caught probably more than anybody else that I know of. But there's several others out there. But it's not like you got a guy that you can call and ask questions to. But it's not like you just.
There's just a handful of them.
Right, and it's such a talk about a niche. I mean that that is very, very few people that can do that. So
it wouldn't surprise me a bit if I may be wrong here, but it wouldn't surprise me a bit if great lion trappers may not be worth a darn at catching a coyote, but great coyote trappers probably. I mean, we know they're not worth a darn at catching lions. They're just so. I think they're so different. And you have to spend so much time focusing your skills
just on lions,
just on that,
and then you get the patience factor.
Yep.
And the dedication of time, which most of us don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
It's just.
I think that's what's got us more than anything. We're in the habitat. We know we're in the right part of the country. We're just only here checking traps for 11 days or 12 days.
Yeah.
It's just not a large enough window.
I really think if we were here for a month, I can almost guarantee you we'd catch one or two lions.
Yeah. I think so.
We're finding their tracks. We're learning places that they're traveling through. You just got to be there when they make their route.
Have you ever found scat here? Because today we're pretty sure we found scat.
I found scratches. I found scat. That's not something I find commonly. Most of the time I'm finding tracks. I found old kills. I haven't found a fresh lion kill that I can remember here. I haven't found a fresh lion kill that I can recall. That's most of the time I'm just finding tracks.
Yeah.
We came. I mean, several years ago, we came close in New Mexico to a lion. Probably three times. We just never committed. But
Yeah, we had that gray fox that got killed in the trap and got buried.
Yeah, you did.
Let's not even talk about it. I'm depressed.
It rolled your backing onto the trap, basically.
Yeah, had a big piece of bark that was about the size of, I don't know, a little bit larger than a dollar bill spread out. And it was just stuck in the jaw enough but it was in a wash where you could see where that cat came through. And I had it all, sticked in and brushed up, and it was kind of chaotic, and it wasn't in there long, but it snapped on him. But the cool part of the story was it snowed, and a lion hunter came out, and we happened to run into him when he was coming through the lane or whatever, and we told him, hey, we had one at some point last night come get in this trap and get away. Exchange phone numbers. Of course, no signal up there on the mountain, and that evening he sent a dog off on that track, and we got a picture of it way up in the tree. His dog's treated.
Awesome.
I was like, man, at least that's cool,
Yeah, he was. I mean, at the highest point on that trip, we were at 9,000 feet, and I think that was probably at 7,500, 8,000 feet. We were way
Wow.
up there. And the snow was probably, I don't know, 7, 8 inches deep. That just happened that evening, so.
Yeah.
What were you going to say about the gray fox?
Yeah, we had the gray fox next to a tank, a holding tank for cattle. You caught, and the lion had killed it and then had buried it.
Had it all covered
Partially
up.
buried it.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and we were very limited on that trip in our section of where it was legal to catch or keep a lion.
Right. You had to be on private ground to keep a lion. If you were on public, you had to turn the lead. I can't remember the details now.
But we were just inside that boundary too,
Right.
and it was, but so yeah, we've had some run-ins, but
A couple of years ago, and I know
I was going to bring that up.
y'all know the story, but I'll tell it for folks who haven't heard it. But we were out here, we were running the trap line, and it actually began back in mule deer season. Me and my brothers, we went back into a kind of a corner pocket that we know some deer and game stays in there, and anytime, I know my brothers get sick of it, but anytime that we're driving across one of these little creek beds or something, I stop, I hop out, and I'm always looking for bobcat tracks and, the occasional lion track, stuff like that. Well, hopped out to check this creek bed for bobcat tracks, and man, there was a lion track there. Looked like a big female, grown female, and man, I was all excited about it. That's pretty cool. My brothers, they don't get into this stuff like I do. They just wanted to go find a big deer, and I understand that. But I was all excited about this lion track. But we boogied off, and I told myself I'd come back in there when we ran the trap line and see if she was still operating in there. So months go by, we come back to run the trap line, and y'all were here.
It was the first year we were here.
Yep. And I went back there, had some big lion traps, and went back there and checked the creek bed. And there was an old lion track in there. I was pretty sure it was old, but I think it was still that same female. And man, it's just picture perfect setup. There's a big boulder in this sand creek bed that pinches everything right up against the washed out bank, and set my lion trap in there, just a natural walk through, and put some lure and urine on that boulder, and went back to setting coyote sets. The next day ran the whole line, and the last trap I had to check was that lion set, and I remember peeking over that edge of that creek down there, that trap being gone, and I could see in that sand, I could see some big lion tracks, and I don't think it was the female that I'd seen before. I'm pretty sure it was a male lion that probably came through there to check on this female, and man, I could see where he got pinched. And he made it a couple steps down the creek, and then he jumped up that ledge that I was kind of pinching everything against with that stone. He jumped several feet up and got on top of the ledge, tore up a whole bunch of stuff up there, and then in a mad dash, he jumped the creek and ran towards the river, and he was in a dead run. This was on a drag. Had about 12 foot of chain with a shock spring. And he was in a dead run. And John actually ended up finding it. You could see where it's one of those saber-tooth drags. Mm-hmm. You could see where the sharp point of that thing, hit in a dead run and just hit at the base of a mesquite and instantly stopped, and he was still in a dead run, and he blew right out of that trap. Messed up the trap. Jacked up the bolts and jaws on the trap. but blew out of it. And I started tracking him from there, and I could tell I never had like a good full pad catch on that cat. When he got pinched, the front left foot, his outside two left toes, I was holding him by that. And he was gone, man. That was...
Well, you gave it your best shot. You called the dogs in even.
Yeah,
you guys
we
ran dogs that night.
We had a guy come in with some dogs, and not too sure how great those dogs were, but it was kind of an old track. I do know some lion hunters other places. I think those guys would have caught that cat, but we didn't catch him. He crossed the river going north and kind of did a big hook on us. We ran him for a couple miles, probably closer to 4 miles. And that was it. He was gone. Now he's just one of those things I stare at the ceiling at night and think about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, it will happen. One of these trips.
Yeah.
Yep. It's
If
just
you've
a
ever-
matter of time.
If you ever lost one of those giant whitetails, which almost all of us hunters have lost a big deer, it's worse than that.
Oh, I was gonna say it's got to be way worse.
Yeah. That same year you had caught a bobcat. It was on drag, and I remember you were having a difficult time locating it.
Yeah.
And I think a bunch of tumbleweed had blown in there, which for those of you in the east, it'll blow into like a canyon area and just like fill up like 10 foot of it or whatever. It's crazy.
Yep.
So John had thermal, and you guys went out there and found that cat. So
Yeah.
saved the day.
Buried in all that tumbleweed.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about glutton for punishment? I went and plugged in there 2 days ago.
Is it all piled up with
It's
tumbleweed?
actually not. There's a lot of tumbleweed in there, but not as bad as it was that day. But I was like, man, it's an awesome bobcat spot. We got to go back in there and set it again because for whatever reason, man, I'm dragging on bobcats this year. Normally I'm banging them pretty good, and this year they're schooling me.
I think with bobcats, some of it's coincidental.
A lot of it.
Yeah, and a lot of it's just the cat does what it wants to do when it wants to do it.
On its
and
own page.
It's on its own page, and I don't think it's got anything. A lot of times, I don't think it's got anything to do with them being particularly smart or wary like a coyote. It's just their agenda.
Yep.
You know, it's just.
I was saying, bobcats always seem to know what they can get away with.
Yeah.
There's something about them, man. It's like if you to give you an idea, you can if you got a gun in your hand, loaded, one in the chamber, and you see a bobcat, he'll be running like his butt's on fire. I mean, he'll be going as fast as he can. Now, that same cat, somehow, if you roll up on him and you don't have a gun, he'll just walk down the road because he knows he can get away with it.
Yeah.
Somehow, they always know what they can get away with.
Yeah. One thing about cats, and all the cats that we've caught over the years, I can only remember like 2 or 3 that were just caught by a couple toes. Usually they're just buried in a trap. I mean, they're usually. You guys can leave comments below, but let's know your experience. But normally, I mean, 95% of the time they are literally just buried in a trap.
I've
Just
never-
fully committed.
Full commit, yeah.
I don't have the amount of experience that y'all do, but I've never once ever caught a bobcat just by like 2 middle toes.
Yeah.
I've never once ever caught one like that.
Years ago, when I was in Kansas, Jake was probably 3rd grade. We were out there, and we caught one in a number 3 coil spring Victor, which is not a bad trap, jaw spread wise and whatever. But anyways, it was just by a couple toes, and it was actually, we actually didn't hang around too long. We shot it pretty quickly, so it was one we were concerned about. But rarely is that an issue, So
I did catch a coyote one time, didn't recover him, and there was a toe in the corner of my trap.
yeah,
Just got one outside toe.
Did you
So that's
got a lever caught up in a knuckle or something. Well, this has been awesome, man. Sitting down and finally get this done. We
You got some more check days left still?
got several check days left, so hopefully, hopefully we didn't just jinx ourselves out of getting a line. We've been talking it up too much.
I don't know about jinxing. We get to go look.
Yes.
Well,
And that's
That's
fun
a-
enough.
Exactly.
he did like prerequisite this that we haven't had any luck with lines yet. So
Maybe one day.
yeah, it'll come around. So if we're able to do this again next year, we'll do this again next year.
Okay.
Before we sign off, Ben, if you want to tell everyone where your website is or where they can contact you if they got questions about anything or.
I own an
Taxidermy.
I
Yeah.
think it's TriStateTaxidermy.com. We're in Houston, Texas. The company's called Tri-State Taxidermy. Been in business 25 years. We do lots of birds, lots of large mammal, lots of small mammal, lots of life-size projects. I'm not your fish guy. Okay, I'm not gonna do it. I'll be straight with you. I'm not a good fish guy. I can refer you to some good fish guys, but I'm not a good fish guy. But everything else we do some really fine taxidermy work on.
He does.
Awesome. Hopefully we can get down there sometime.
Man, I'd love to have you.
Hang out at the shop.
So here's the crazy thing. So we're in the Panhandle, and you had mentioned that earlier. And well, just for reference too, one point today, Jake looked at the GPS and we were 3,200 foot elevation. That's part of the reason it gets really cold here at times. But anyways, where you're at's like 11 hours away, 10
Yes,
11
sir.
hours away, south, same state.
Yep.
Give you an idea of the size of Texas. So
And they start complaining if it gets below 50 down there.
yeah.
It got 28 down there the week before we came up here, and the whole city shut down.
Well, you guys got snow or ice and stuff too, didn't you?
I've got to admit, we got more snow than I've ever seen in my life down there.
Yeah.
I got 3 inches of snow at my house.
That's crazy.
My kid's brain melted.
That's awesome. Well,
I think they missed 3 days of school over it.
Really?
Really.
So they really had the big time. So
thought it was a blizzard. Well, this has been fun. We're all gonna hit the hay and wake up and go check traps tomorrow. I'm gonna have some nighttime ice cream before that. Before I go to bed.
You talked me into it.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Adios.